There we go. So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to have with us Chris Hughes, who's director at Source Marketing. So, firstly, Chris, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Source Marketing, what you do, how you help people, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So as I say, Chris from Source Marketing. I suppose been in the marketing agency world for about 25 years now, showing my age. And in the last 4 years, I've been at Source. We are essentially a PR and marketing agency based in the centre of Leeds. We I've been operating now for 24 years, so next year is our 25th anniversary. We operate, I'd say probably our sweet spot in terms of what we do is PR and social media, but we work with clients across a whole range of kind of marketing channels, particularly kind of digital marketing channels like SEO, paid digital, and those aspects. And we work with clients across the UK really, and that can be both the B2B and B2C side of things, and got a very experienced team. So we've pretty much every sector. I think we've pretty much
Brilliant,
worked at some point. One of us has worked in that sector at some
brilliant.
stage. So there's a broad range of experience, and we work with a nice range of clients across a lot of different sectors, and can advise them and guide them on strategy and help support their growth.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, what, Chris? What would you say would make an A grade client for you? Who are the perfect clients that you serve best, and you sort of love each other because you just get on really well.
Yeah, I think probably an SME size business is probably our perfect fit. I think that's the sort of business where I think sometimes for much bigger businesses than that, they may see us as too small,
Yep.
and can be that sort of perception challenge. Whereas I think within the SME size, because we're in that space as
Yes.
well, it feels like a natural fit. And I think you're working with client side, probably smaller teams, so you get to kind of have that real relationship, and it's a cliche, but become that extension of their team.
Yep.
So you can really be advising them and guiding them through their marketing, whichever aspect of it may be. And from a personnel point of view, I probably might touch on this a little bit more, but I think the sort of clients that really we work best with are those that I suppose have that trust in what we can do,
Yep.
and are open to being guided, kind of respectful of our expertise and approach, and give us that freedom to kind of help guide them and be that advisor.
Yep.
It's always the worst when you sometimes it can be you're treated as a supplier.
Yep.
And I think clients never get the most out of that when it's that supplier relationship. I think it becomes commoditized, and I think for us
Yep.
it is about being that advisor, and then also implementing the campaigns or activity for them, and working to KPIs, which we do on all our clients.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, it makes perfect sense. As I think and we primarily work in the SME space,
Mm,
and I just love the real difference we can make in what we do, and I'm sure you do to
mm.
people's lives. It's like,
Yeah,
I mean, it's nice. I have worked with larger corporate organisations as well in the executive coaching space, but you're changing some things, but
mm,
the impact you can have on an owner managed SME type business is quite
yeah,
significant, and so I totally get that. And yeah, I mean, it is a bit crazy to engage with people, with experts, and then almost, as you say, treat you like a supplier and tell you what to do, sort of thing. It's
yeah,
disgusting, but happens.
yeah.
Um, so. If we maybe start, Chris, looking back a little bit about your background, how you got
Mm.
into business, and why this particular one for you.
Yeah, so like I say, I graduated around probably 99, 2000, it's a long time ago now. And I'd always, through college, through university, I'd always been quite strong within English. I'd done my degree in English, and I came out of university not really sure what I'd want to do, but I kind of felt I'd be interested in doing something that involved writing. I toyed with the idea of journalism, but bizarrely, I was kind of put off that by a careers advisor at university
Right.
who said to me, you need to have written the college newspaper and all this sort of thing, which I hadn't done. And so she kind of discouraged me from that. But an upshot of that was a friend of mine was working for a PR agency down in London. Seemed to be really experienced it, having a great experience. And he said to me, he said, this is telling me about what it was. There's a lot of writing involved, a lot of creative ideas. You get to work on different clients, so you get to work in different sectors. And I just thought, that sounds interesting. So I did the usual thing where you come out of university with a degree like English, which is quite generic, and you then kind of approaching companies to work for free effectively. And that worked for me. I ended up working. I approached some of the big agencies in Manchester because that's where I'm originally from.
Yeah.
And I approached an agency called Mason Williams. I don't know if they're still in operation now, but they were a big Manchester consumer PR agency at the time. And I remember doing a couple of months work experience for them. And they had some really big clients. I remember working on Hasbro and those sort of size brands, and the opening of Printworks. If anybody knows Manchester well, worked on all that and stuff. So it was a really good insight into the world of PR in a big agency. And although I wasn't getting paid to do it, it was kind of that got me started on the road to to a career in that area. And then I kind of progressed from there. Probably the next big thing in terms of why I ended up in Leeds was around 2003, I ended up working as an exec for what was probably one of the two biggest agencies in Leeds and arguably Yorkshire at that point, which was an agency called Brahm that were based in Leeds.
Yeah.
They were a big powerhouse at that point and a great agency to be part of. And I moved across in 2003, and it was just great times doing some brilliant campaigns, really good fun campaigns for different. I remember as a PR stunt dressing up as a giant king prawn in the. Do you remember the mascot Grand National where they used to get all the football mascots and brands and I remember and it was at a race course. I think it was Huntingdon or something. And the idea was I would get dressed up as Prawn Connery, this giant king prawn, and the plan was for me to do a false start, so I would get so for Young Seafood, I think it was Young Seafood, the brand we were working with at the time.
Yeah, that would be right.
That was the link. I wasn't just dressed as a prawn,
just for fun,
just for laughs. So that was the idea. What we didn't take into consideration was pretty much everybody else was trying a false start as well. And it was just chaos. And I remember seeing a copy of the Metro next day. I think I'd fallen at the second hurdle or something like that. I was 30. I'm sure it was like 33-1 to win. It wasn't until the next day that I picked up a copy of the Metro, and you can see me with the hordes of mascots doing this race. And there's a streaker running in the
oh, brilliant!
I'd never even seen this streaker. It was I was oblivious to it. I must have fallen over another hurdle. And so really bizarre, really bizarre campaigns that I could talk about for ages. But it was a good fun time to be within an agency, a big agency in Leeds at that point. And then fast forward, kind of probably the next key change for me was around 2013. I ended up working for, again, massive digital agency in Leeds, a company called Epiphany. And that was exposure to a different side. I up until that point, I'd always been in the pure PR agency world. And moving there to go into Epiphany and set up, I suppose, a PR business within that company was a great experience. And it also coincided with there was some big fundamental. I won't bore you with them, but big fundamental change with the way SEO was happening. It suddenly put a big emphasis on PR and digital PR. So all of a sudden, digital agencies were investing in PR people. So it was really it was almost kind of at that point when Google was penalising brands for not having ethical white hat links pointing to their website. We were at the forefront of that, and so I got to experience all that at that time. And then bringing it back to source, I suppose, I was approached 4 years ago. What I didn't mention is my first agency. When I first moved to Leeds Bram, the big agency I worked for, I worked with another exec at that point, a lady called Martha, who she was, I think she was with the business. We worked together for kind of 2 or 3 years, and then she went off to go. I think she went in house at that point, and she ended up being my my client because
Right.
she'd moved to the government National Apprenticeship Service, and because we'd worked together, she knew our capabilities and things. So we ended up working in that respect. So she was my client. Stayed in touch for a long time, and she was already working at Source. She was already a director within Source
Right.
4 years ago,
Yeah.
and approached me about the opportunity to kind of get shares within the business and become a director, because one of our co-founders, Peter, was kind of retiring
Yeah.
and slowly exiting the business. So yeah, that's how I ended up at Source. So it's a bit of a whistle stop of my career,
Yeah.
and
Wonderful.
I could tell you countless PR stories, but I don't think we'd have the time.
No, wonderful. Yeah, it sounds fascinating. An interesting world to be in.
Yeah,
And
very
so,
bonkers.
when you were growing up, Chris, is this the sort of career that you had planned out for yourself, or did you have other things planned
Um,
as a boy?
no, it was funny. We did an exercise in the off. We did a social post recently at Source about what were the things we wanted to do as a kid. And I think when I was younger, I wanted to be a train driver. I think I was.
Brilliant.
I think that was my goal. No. When I left uni, I didn't really. Again, because I didn't really see my English as a vocational degree.
Right.
If I'd done engineering, you kind of your path
Yeah.
is
Get you.
laid out ahead of you. And for me, it was I've done English, but I kind of feel like, oh, I've got a good degree, but I don't feel how do I apply that
Yes. Get
to the
that.
world of work. So
Yeah.
it was purely from seeing where friends were doing, and also at this point, I think early 2000s, like PR was in a real boom period. I think it was in one of the top three careers that
Yeah.
graduates went for.
Yes.
It was really in that kind of big boom period. So yeah, I kind of fell into it, but it just played to my interest in writing, coming up with creative ideas,
Brilliant.
and quickly got a kick out of generating media coverage for clients. Getting national coverage for clients that it gave you a real buzz
Yep.
to see something that a story that you'd taken and created and crafted had
Yeah.
got you in some of the biggest newspapers and TV coverage and all that sort of thing, and it just gave you a buzz that I
I can
thought
imagine.
I might not get that from another
Yeah.
kind of career. So that,
Brilliant.
yeah, I still get it now. It's bizarre.
Wonderful. No, I think,
You get a
yeah, I
piece
mean,
of
it's
coverage for a
great.
client and you see how pleased they are, and
Yeah.
you still almost get the same buzz you did 20 years ago.
Brilliant. No, I honestly can imagine that, and that's important, isn't it? To know you're in the right place. If you're still getting the
Yeah,
same buzz you got 20 years ago, that's
yeah.
you're in the right place. It's unfortunately there are too many people out there in general that going to work or running a business
Mm,
is a grind, not a pleasure.
yeah.
Which
I
they
also
really
quite liked as well how you what I always like with doing campaigns, and was I always felt you're seeing something through from end to end. So you're actually
yes,
coming up with the idea, then crafting how you're going to pitch it and the story you're going to tell to the journalists and get the media exposure, and then you all see it all the way through to the actual results, which is and that conclusion in terms of the results you've achieved against the objectives that you'd set out
yeah,
for a client. So it was just nice to be part of that. You're part of that end to end journey, really. Whereas
yeah, brilliant.
I'd always thought that, rightly or wrongly, I thought, well, in some businesses you perform a certain function
Yep,
within a process, whereas this was almost you kind of seen the whole process from
yes,
start to finish. So
makes
that was another thing that appealed.
makes perfect sense. So when you look at Source itself and growing it, and as you say, you sort of joined
Mm.
as a director a few years back. What are some of the biggest issues that you've had to overcome over these last few years?
I think some of the issues or challenges we faced have probably been. Although I've only been a business owner, I'd say for the last 4 years, being what I have been is through working in different agencies, is work around other business owners and
Yep.
see, and also been in that environment where even as an account exec, it's incumbent on you to go
Yes.
out there and win business and things like that. So so yeah, the challenges that I think we've always faced, but it just becomes a bit more exacerbated when you're a business owner. The pressure becomes greater
Yes,
slightly.
can do. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I mean, it's some of the usual things. It's as an agency, you only ever rent your clients. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We're quite fortunate at Source. We've got clients that we've had for 10 years plus, and
brilliant.
you know, we do pride ourselves on that client retention.
Quite rightly so. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but there is other factors that can beyond your control that can mean that clients can come and go, and you know, touch wood, we're in that position where if we do lose a client, usually it's due to a reason beyond our control. So you can
Yeah,
kind of, you know, rest with that. So it's that whole thing of constantly needing to have a sales pipeline to keep that going in case there is
yeah,
a client drop off. Whereas if you're in house, I suppose you've got that peace of mind, unless the company's struggling, you've
yeah,
got that peace of mind that you've got that constant workflow, constant income. Recruitment's always a challenge. I
yeah.
think again we've been I think we've been very fortunate, I'd say, in the last 12 months, whereby we've made the right hires, we've got the right delivery team in place. But it can be a bit of a minefield, the recruitment side of things, certainly, and that will always be the case, I think.
Yeah.
And then I suppose one of the challenges, it maybe comes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, is I think more holistically, I think there's always been a challenge where again, PR people may disagree, but the level of respect for the PR profession, in the sense that you are professionals, you are experts in what you do.
Yep.
And I always kind of come up with, you know, and sometimes that can be lost. I think because people consume the media, they have an idea of what PR is, and they
Yeah.
might, oh, I can do that, or you know what I mean.
Yep.
Whereas I think if you were on an operating theatre and the heart
Yeah.
surgeon's performing the surgery, you wouldn't tell the heart surgeon where to
No.
put the scalpel, would you? So it's
No.
kind of, whereas I think with PR, I think there's always been that ever since day one, really. I think that struggle with whether that's speaking to clients but just generally just to see it as a respected profession,
Yeah.
and that's where you get the best results for clients, where the clients trust in what you do.
Yeah.
They respect your expertise in that area, and they give you that freedom to go out and get the best results for them. And I think that's always been a challenge. I think it'll still maintain, and it's not all clients. You do get it, you know, from time to time.
Absolutely.
But I know, and it's nice that, you know, the people do take an interest in PR and do feel like it's, you know, something they could do. But I think yeah, at the same time, you've got to appreciate those people that have worked in this industry for a long time and know what they're doing, and it is a profession.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so easy, as you say, if it's possible to do yourself, we tend to find some people don't believe, well, you know, why couldn't I do it? I know one of my
Yeah,
clients said, um, I introduced a client to somebody who was interested in working with us. And my client afterwards said, well, he said to me, he said, why would I need a coach? I can just read all the books myself.
yeah,
And I mean, there's a lot more to it, but Gary just turned around and said, well, Chris reads them for you, so you don't have to.
mm.
And you know, that was one of the things. But it was just like I think there's lots of professions where people just think, well, how hard,
Yeah,
yeah, how hard can it be? Um,
yes,
and
yeah,
that's the challenge. And I suppose what we have to do as professionals is be continually educating people about
mm.
what is involved. And you know, sometimes we can let our marketplace down by not doing so, and
Yeah,
saying, you know, this is what it looks like. This was a piece by an amateur compared to a piece by a professional, or what it might be.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and obviously challenges, whether it's from the challenges or other areas, Chris, what would you say the secrets of growing as successful business are?
I think I think adapting is been key. I mean, even in the sport, a small space of time I've been with Source, so Source has always had a long kind of history of being seen as a PR specialists,
Yep.
PR social media specialists, and one of the things I wanted to do when we came on board, probably born out of the fact I'd spent quite a number of years in digital agencies, was to try and expand our offering in a way that didn't stretch us. It didn't mean we suddenly have to recruit loads of
Yeah.
SEO people, loads of, you
Yeah.
know, and so I did a lot of work in terms of speaking to other agency owners, speaking to people I've worked with previously, and identifying those partners that could come on board and support us on clients. Whether it's a client needs an SEO strategy, then we've got the right people to bring in, and I think that's enabled us to deliver a more holistic offering,
Yep.
more a wider channel offering to clients without stretching ourselves, in the sense
Yep.
that we're bringing on the people. If a client wants some SEO, well, we've actually got someone here who's spent 15, 20 years in this
Yes.
space and can advise them. So it's not that we're not spreading ourselves thin, suddenly trying to be SEO experts when we're not. It's like, no, here's the expert, and it's about working with those partners to deliver a greater breadth of work for clients, which I think
Yeah.
that's you have to adapt like that. The adapt or die, I think, is quite true, and I think
Yep.
we've had to do that as a business, and it's benefit as well. I think on a personal level as well, I think, and business level, I've been very much around kind of mindfulness. I'm a very big
Yep.
believer in that kind of mindfulness aspect. I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of worrying about things that you can't
Yep.
control. And I say, from a personal perspective, I'll always try and correct myself. If I'm lying awake at night worrying about something, I think, well, can I do anything about that? Is that within my control to change or
Yep.
influence and things like that? And I think that's very much important for business. Certainly mindfulness for me is a big thing.
Yeah, I think Stephen Covey talks about the circle of let's get it right, circle of control and circle of concern. And the bigger the gap between the two is the more stressful,
Yeah,
So either increase your control to match your concern or reduce your concern to what you can
yeah,
control. And it's sort of an obvious thing, but it is quite an interesting thing when you start thinking about it. What I'm worried about that. What can I do about it? Nothing. Well, what's the point worried about it? It's like
yeah.
it's gonna do its own thing, isn't it? And no, that makes perfect sense. And I think we're a business coaching organisation, Chris. I'm keen
Mm.
to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or life in general. Who's had the biggest impact on you?
So, as I said, I've worked with some quite big agencies. I think probably the quite a big influence on me was the point where I joined Epiphany, which was the big SEO agency, big digital marketing agency. Certainly at that point, they later sold to J-Wing for about 18, I think it was about 18 million pounds. But I was there through that process of them preparing the business for sale. But just from being in that organisation, working with Robin, who was one of the co-founders of Epiphany, it was just interesting to see how they'd approached, for example, sales. Like I think it was the first agency I've been into where they were kind of meticulous in terms of how they approached growing a pipeline,
Yep.
bringing in clients. They had in-house telemarketers there. They had a dedicated sales team that were out on the road meeting and winning and pitching
Yep.
to clients and winning business in, and it was effectively a sales machine. How
Yep.
the business operated, and I think that was a bit of an eye opener to me, because it was the first time there'd been new business functions in agencies I've been before, but this was the first time I'd seen it done
Right.
in that way, and it was very interesting to see how that was. It's probably not really coaching, but it's kind of coaching on the job, and seeing how someone who's, like I say, Robin had with his part with the co-founder Shane, they'd grown the Epiphany from a business at the very early stages of search marketing to then selling it however many
Yeah.
years later for 80 million pounds. You can't
Yeah.
help but pick up things from
Yes.
those sort of people.
Absolutely.
I think that's really good. A good experience for me, and just gave me a good insight. 'Cause I think that's always probably the biggest challenge for any agency is it's retaining clients, but it's also winning new clients,
Yep.
and making sure you've got that constant. Because I think through winning, and that the winning of clients is what fuels the growth.
Yep.
So it was that was really useful for me from a understanding of business and what you need to do as an agency. And I think I've took a lot of those certainly sales processes into my career since then, and certainly
Right.
for what we're doing at Source. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. And whether it's from the coach or other sources, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using a lot about business or success or life in general?
Um, I don't know. I'm quoting this. It was funny. It was a long time ago. I was working at an agency, and it was quite. And this probably comes back to the mindfulness thing. But I remember I was quite junior at the time, and there was a very experienced director in the business, and he was having a hard time on with a client. It was something had gone wrong, and it was I won't name names, but he was just having a very bad day. And then he just said, "No one's died," and the stress just
Yeah,
went away from his face completely, just from saying those
yeah,
words.
brilliant.
And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah,
We're all human. We're all trying our best. We're all trying our best for the client, and
absolutely.
in our space. But you can't go to that next stage where it's affecting your mental health, affecting your
It doesn't.
well-being and things. And yeah,
It just doesn't help anybody. That's the point.
no,
Is nobody wins if we have, too much stress or strain and worrying. You're absolutely right.
yeah,
Nobody's died. Most of what we operate is first world problems, isn't it? It's like, yeah,
yeah,
okay, we didn't mean to do it. There's a phrase I got taught many years ago, which sort of sits alongside it, which I love, which is called standing in your own truth.
yeah,
And by that I mean, let's say there's been a problem with a client account, let's say, um, I know I did the best I could. So
yes,
I appreciate it went wrong, and I'm really sorry that it's gone wrong, but
yeah,
it's not been from a lack of effort, and
yeah,
therefore I will absolutely take a certain level of whatever the right word is. Punishment's probably not the right word, but I'll take a certain level, and rightly so. But I ain't gonna be,
mm,
lying in bed thinking about it all night because it's
yeah.
not. That's not right. Uh,
Yeah, and I
and
think I think clients are human as well, because I think I
yes,
think I think as long as you've got a good relationship with a client,
yeah,
if 10 months out of the 12 months you're absolutely flying, but there might be 1 month where you've took a dip or you've something's gone wrong, then I think because you've got that currency in the bank, haven't you? You've got
yes,
that belief. Then clients are probably more likely to forgive you for or understand or empathize,
yes.
and be happy to move on. And as long as you're honest and transparent about what's happened, I think that's the dynamic. If you've got that dynamic in place, then I think clients are happy to overlook those sort of things, and because they know
Absolutely.
that the majority of the time you're performing, you're delivering great results.
Absolutely. We use a principle in Actual Coach called we call it the emotional bank account. And we
Mm,
basically say if you do things for clients ahead of time, you just do those little touches of maybe talk to them about their background, maybe the football team, the sports team, whatever it is, and build rapport.
mm,
You're adding things into a bank account, and
yeah,
and therefore when there's a deposit, withdrawal required, we've done something wrong, they've got something to withdraw. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
going to give you a hard time, but you guys have done so. I've seen you work really hard. I remember that time you had to work over the weekend to get that job done. If we
yeah,
continually doing good stuff, we get to allow them to withdraw a certain amount from that emotional bank account if we put stuff in. Um,
yeah,
I think the obvious the one that's most relevant to sort of personal relationships is when's the best time to buy your wife or partner a bunch of flowers, and it's when you haven't done anything wrong. If if that makes sense, it's like, oh no,
yeah.
I just was thinking of you. Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's amazing,
Yeah.
and
I jotted down a classic Bill Gates one as well, which was
yes,
which I think is true. Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning, and
yes,
I think that's very true. I think getting that understanding of your clients, and particularly those that I think there's an importance to constantly check in with clients and
yep,
get their feedback, and
absolutely,
almost see the iceberg in advance. Um,
absolutely,
because a lot of clients are quite polite, might not
yeah,
want to kind of say to you directly if there's an issue or a challenge and things. And I think
exactly,
understanding them, and spending social time with them as well, I think is a big thing, because I think for the health of account. I think sometimes you can fall, and I've done this myself. You can fall into the trap where you just look at KPIs and you think, God, we're performing brilliantly, smashing KPIs. That client's that I can part that client. That client's happy, and we're doing a great job for that brand or whatever. And then all of a sudden something goes wrong, and it's like you're thinking, well, why is it? And it can often be that
Yeah,
it can be the smaller things where you've overlooked the relationship side of things, or there's something in the relationship that you'd overlooked,
yeah.
so do believe a lot in that.
You bang on. We do a lot of work with that specifically. This idea of there's two key parts to building the best rapport with the client,
Mm,
relationship with the client. One is the outcome. Did they get what they expected? Low, medium,
mm,
and high. But then it's the experience of dealing with us. Do they
yeah,
get on with us? Because you can do really well. Your KPIs can be absolutely 10 out of 10. But if they
yeah,
don't really like us, we're still at risk.
yeah,
It's like, well, these guys are really, really good, but you don't really get on with them. And
yeah.
so building both and one of the exercises we often do is analyze that. So out of 10 or out of low, medium and high, how would you gauge the outcomes the client's getting compared to what they expected, but also
Mm,
how well do we get on? And
mm,
how do we progress that up the tree? Because it's only if we've got high, medium, or medium high or better of relationship and results do we get a loyal client. Anything below that, customer. See, I mean, one of the things I rail against is this idea of customer satisfaction. Well, if they're
mm,
satisfied, they're still at risk to other people's
mm,
marketing. It's only
mm,
when they're delighted are they going to go, no, I work with Source.
mm.
Only when they're delighted, and it's
Yeah,
like we need to create constant delight, I believe, to have
yeah,
long-term clients. But you guys have got them, so you
yeah.
probably know a fair bit about how to make that happen.
We're just good at socializing, I think.
Yeah, well, it's a really big part of it, and
Yeah,
it is, that ability to socialize when your client wants that to happen, and
yeah,
and it can just be that, what, yeah, no, I know I have got a train, but yeah, no, I'd really love to come to have a drink with you
yeah,
and just learn a bit more about how things are going for you.
yeah,
That is what can be worth, you know,
yeah,
a whole bunch of other stuff
yeah.
put
And it
in.
doesn't have to be a big social thing. It just be go for a coffee. Can we go for a coffee and just have a chat about anything? And
Absolutely.
from that, you might find things that are,
Absolutely. There's a guy called Paddy Lund who we work with quite a lot, and I've trained with a couple of times, and he coined the phrase critical non-essentials. And what by that he means they're not essential to doing business with your client, but they're critical to the relationship.
mm,
And they can be very tiny things. And the phrase I am sorry, it's the thought that counts is really relevant to client relationships. It doesn't have to be that you're buying them, 100 pound bottles of champagne every
yeah,
week.
yeah,
It's just that, I'm thinking of one of my clients who's become a friend, and I do this anyway because he's a friend, but he's a
mm,
massive Man City fan.
yeah,
So, if I see they're 2-0 up at half time, I'll probably
yeah,
message him to say, "How you getting on? Are you at the ground?"
yeah,
Or and it's those sorts of things. And that's not
yeah,
a text. It's a 1 minute text. Doesn't mean
yeah.
anything. It doesn't need a lot, but it's just that
No,
thinking
yeah.
about people, I think.
That,
Um,
that always relates to that whole thing I was saying earlier about the cliche of becoming an extension of someone's team. It's almost like seeing it as if you're in the same building together and
yes,
and having that friendship level,
yeah,
like you have with your colleagues and things like that.
absolutely. So if you were an extension, you would naturally have those conversations. So
Yeah,
it's having
yeah.
those conversations. I thought you mentioned there was two big agencies in Leeds. What was just going back to you said Bram.
Oh, bro, I think there was another one called Polters. I think it was. Yeah, Polters. They're no longer in business either. I think they stopped trading mid 2000s, but it was almost like a bit of a rivalry between those two big
Right.
agencies in the day.
I'm friendly with a guy called Philip Hesketh, who was MD at a company called Advertising Principles
Oh yes,
in
yeah,
Leeds,
yeah,
and he's taught me a few things actually, and I've trained with him. He's a brilliant guy, but
yeah,
he actively does. He works on this principle of I saw this and thought of you.
yeah.
So he will actively think about his top clients. He'll spend a couple of hours on a regular basis finding things that are relevant to some of his key clients and just sending them a
Mhm.
little.
Yeah,
I think he used to get when it was a little less digital. He used to get the Witch magazine,
Yeah.
and because he just talks. He's a professional speaker now. He speaks on persuasion influence, so he has key
Mm.
customers. Think people like Visa and big blue chips, and he'll just go through which and find an article about credit. Something
Yeah.
going in the credit industry and send it to the guy he knows at Visa
Yeah.
and it was just this. It didn't take a massive amount of effort, but it was really critical to. I
Yeah.
saw this and thought of you, so it's an interesting principle.
Yeah. Very much so.
And any favourite books or podcasts on business or success in general, Chris, that you can recommend?
Apart from the Source podcast, obviously, that's
Obviously,
the
absolute
new.
bang on.
um, a funny thing, what the thing that the one book that stood out, and I actually got to meet the. It was done. It was a guy who presented it, and then mentioned there's a book about this.
Right,
I think it was called. Was it David Abbott? I think it was called. But it's basically how to price your platypus, which is a
right.
very odd
Interesting.
name for
Yep,
a book.
yep,
And I won't go into too much detail about it, but it was going to detail about the whole psychology of pricing and how you
yep,
price things
yep,
and how customers respond to different pricing strategies and
yep,
things like that. I think he gave the example of back in 1997. He gave this date in 1997. He said in the UK a price of coffee was £1. Um, a day later, it was £3, and that was around the whole Starbucks.
yep.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
suddenly coffee suddenly had a real added value to it that it didn't have the day before.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's all that thing of how you price, not just price, but how you position your services, the added value element. But I found that quite fascinating, the whole psychology of
yeah,
pricing strategies. Even for e-commerce businesses where they put products on, they've got four different products. From left to right, which one's the most expensive and which one's it,
yeah.
it is it is if you get a chance to read it,
I'll look that out.
it's an
Actually,
interesting book. You can't forget the title, that's for sure.
no, absolutely great. I mean, what a great way to make sure that people remember what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I know, as I say, Philip Heskey's a friend of mine now, and he does a lot of research. Um, a lot of things he talks about is based on analytical exercises and things that both he's done, but a lot of other people done. Things
yeah.
like don't offer too many options to a client, and
Yes,
so, you talk about in the supermarket when you get the people that say, "Well, have you tried this?" And if it was
yeah,
any more than three, I think the experiment was like jams, any more than
yeah,
three, and the amount of sales dropped by 50% because I couldn't
yeah,
decide, rather
yeah,
than I'll have one of those or two of those or something. And the other one that I've kept with me for a long time is the brain apparently can't process the number seven. So if
yeah,
you have a seven at the end of your pricing, it typically the brain goes lower rather than higher. Whereas if
yeah,
it was an eight or even a six, it's going to go, well, that's that much. It goes up rather than the seven that
yeah,
goes down, which is weird.
yeah.
I accept it to be true. I can't honestly tell you it is, but
No, it's
funny enough,
the book covers a lot of that human psychology of
yeah,
how we see price and how we perceive it. If something's
yes,
too cheap, someone was telling me recently that it's obviously golf has always been big in Scotland, but someone was telling me now that I found it's quite expensive to play up there, and apparently now, and obviously it's big for the US market and the Far
yeah,
East market, and apparently unless a round is £200 to play at a course, the Americans and those in
yeah.
the Far East won't play that course
I can
because it's a
imagine.
perception that it's not a well, if it's less than £200, it's not a good course, which is just bizarre. But it's a whole pricing
It's that
expectation
reassure.
mentality, and
Yeah, it's that reassuringly expensive idea. Funny enough, one of my actually coach colleagues, unfortunately no longer with us, but he was very, very senior in um, Royal Bank of Scotland Group,
yeah,
NatWest, and he had a claim to fame that he was the MD of Green Flag,
mm,
the car recovery business. At the point at which they were the first sponsors of the England football shirt. I don't know
right,
if you have all that. I don't know how long ago, but one
yeah,
thing he said they provided a white label insurance service to BMW. So
Mm.
they were BMW's insurance. So BMW selling insurance with a car,
Yeah.
you get it from him. And he
Yeah.
said they got this amazing deal. They found this sort of underwriter, and they got this, and it was something like you can insure a BMW 3 Series for
Mm.
£127 for the year. Yeah, you go back a few years, but you just pay
Yeah.
the price. And it was amazing. It was an incredible price. And he said it just nobody was interested. And they doubled the price and it went off the shelves. And it literally was nuts. It was like, well, all
Yeah.
that money was profit. It's like we're
Yeah.
buying it, we can provide it at 127, but people won't buy it unless it's 250. And
Yeah.
all that extra 123 is profit. And it's nuts. It's fascinating. So
Yeah.
remind us again, it's pricing your
I think it's
platypus.
how to price your platypus. I think it's on
Brilliant.
Amazon or somewhere,
So
but it's
platypus, we'll stick platypus in. There can't be that many
platypus.
books.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't even know it was a creature. I was showing my lack of knowledge, but I
Oh,
didn't. I was wondering what on earth a platypus was before I went into this. Now I know what one is.
interesting creature.
Yeah.
Because it's got a bill.
Mm,
It's lays egg. It's a mammal that lays eggs, has a bill, and
mm,
it is poisonous. It has
mm.
actually poisonous spines on it.
Yeah.
There's a great if you put Platinus and the great comedian Robin Williams into YouTube, he does a great sketch about God on weed. Going right, okay, guys, we're going to take a duck. No, sorry, we're going to take a weasel and we're going to sting a bell on it. And yeah, anyway, brilliant. And Chris, I'm keen to know what you've learned about yourself throughout your journey so far.
um, what would I say I've learned about myself? I think it's more. I think there's a few things. I think there's a certain. I've been very conscious. I do doing leadership coaches and coaching and things like that about the kind of the shadow that you cast and things like that. I mean,
Yep.
I think there's you come across a lot of people in all types of business that don't look at that and see what impact they're having and that
Yes.
sort of thing. And I've certainly the last few years I've been very kind of mindful of focusing in on that and seeing how that can have a big impact, particularly from a leadership point of view. Um, Certainly, I think the other things as well is that um, I think it's probably more a byproduct of working marketing, but I think I've learned to kind of not get too discouraged by a lot of the noise out there. I think you can particularly if you go on LinkedIn, all you hear is good news about what other agencies are doing, and it makes you think, well, God, we're not flying at that level, and it's a false economy. And I
It
think
is.
I
Yeah.
think I've learned to kind of make sure that I don't take that too much on
Yep.
face value, and
Brilliant.
I get a lot more value from. Luckily, I'm still in touch with quite a few agency owners that I'll catch up from time to time, and just by that's where you get the truth because
Yep.
that's when they'll tell you what's actually going on, and
Absolutely.
it's not all roses. So I think you can become a little bit preoccupied with that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing as well, again, the other thing you can do is fall into the trap of is chasing money and chasing hierarchy and status and all those things. And really, in the grand scheme of things, they're important to have, obviously, for you. But the big things you put priority on in life and the big emphasis is your family, and having that time to do the things you like outside of work and things, having hobbies and stuff like that. That's the quality time that I think, you know,
That's, that's
just just
success.
just just having more money to enable you to buy things
No.
doesn't a flashier car or something. It doesn't give you that much. The novelty soon wears off. Whereas, if you can go on holiday with your family and have a great experience, or you know, play a great round of golf that you talk about for months on end. That's
Absolutely.
that's far more important.
Absolutely. It's. I think the key thing. I completely agree. Money it doesn't equal success at all.
No.
There's nothing wrong with having money as part of success, but it's
Mm,
not it's not the basis of it. I think what is important though is to know what our version of success looks like,
yeah.
and be really clear on that, and make sure. And part of the things that we do in Action Coaches make sure that the business is designed to give the owners the success they want, whether that's
Mm,
financial time, because things like, having time to play golf on a regular basis, or
mm.
or go on the extra holiday they want, or travel around
yeah,
the world. I had one of my clients wanted to sail. They wanted to go on the round the world sailing
yeah,
race. They ended up doing a leg of it, which ended up being exactly what they wanted, but it was still like 3 months or something. It was like 3 months of sailing across the Atlantic Ocean was
mm,
amazing. But that takes some money. It was like, I don't know,
yeah,
20 grand to do, but it also took 3 months off.
yeah,
And when you know what success looks like, we can make sure we drive the business towards that, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Um, Speaking of which, our definition in actually coach of a true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's interesting. I think that session that I attended, that was a key learning for me to think about how, um, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as business owners, if you're embroiled in the business and things like that, and the business can't exist without you, then the value of the business is not there.
Absolutely.
The value diminishes, and I think we've done a lot of we're doing a lot of work at the moment about how we do that. Like I mentioned before, we've recruited well, we've brought in a good
Brilliant.
delivery team and things like that, and that's where we want to get to. And I think also as well, it gives you as business owners, it gives you the time. If you're not constantly knee deep in client work, then you've got the time to actually do the things that are going to add value to your business.
Yeah.
Whether that's going for a coffee, with a client and things like that, and just having that headspace to be able to do that and get out the day to day. That's that. I think that rings true with me definitely.
Yeah. I think it's rarely until we get to a point where we've got other people that are literally replacing us completely. Do we not have times in our business life when we don't have to get stuck in for a period?
Yeah,
Like sometimes something goes a bit
yeah,
right, but it's when it's the norm is the problem. And the analogy I often use is, yeah, it's okay if if our company, if we see our business as a ship, a sailing ship, if there's an emergency, our team might appreciate a bit of a hand to pull the sails up to
mm,
allow the. But while we're doing it, we might be thinking, oh, we're getting stuck in, and aren't we doing great?
mm,
But our team can be and should be thinking, well, who's steering it?
yeah,
Who's guiding it, who's navigating?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
like you're here, great. I know I
yeah,
did but really you should be at the back
yeah,
navigating and telling
yeah,
you, making sure we're going to hit the long term
yeah,
outcome. And so it is a falsehood, I think, of many business owners thinking that because I'm willing and able and often do get stuck in,
yeah,
I'm supporting the business. And unfortunately, for business, any form of dependence on an individual, a senior individual in a business,
yeah,
not just reduce its value, but becomes a bottleneck,
mm,
becomes the thing that holds a business back
yeah,
if it's dependent on an individual, whether that's an owner or a particular person.
yeah.
So no, brilliant. So looking forward, Chris, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
Um, so moving forward, it's like I said, I'm still fairly, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things, compared to other business owners, I'm still fairly in my infancy. I think we've done a lot of work around introducing processes to make us, I think I'm a big believer in process in terms of making sure you get that consistency of delivery of
Brilliant.
clients. I think I think the sales pipeline is something. I think the growth of the business is going to come through that, and I think we've done a lot of work in that area to make sure we're speaking to lots of different clients and opening up opportunities really for us to for
Yeah.
us to drive that growth. I think I'd probably be lying if I said that AI wasn't a concern.
Yep.
I think it's I've spoke to quite a few people around this, and I've seen in other sectors as well. I think I'm yet to speak to somebody that's given me a very convincing argument on how AI will create jobs. It,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it,
No.
it looks very much like a on face value. It certainly in the short to medium term, it's going to take more jobs away, and my fear with that is more not necessarily people at director level or owner level, but possibly people who are in their early 20s, starting out in their career,
Yeah.
doing those certain tasks that I think are important to help you I mean, back in the day, it was posting out press releases and faxing press releases and
Yeah.
photocopying this and that, but it made up you as a person. Whereas now it's and that's an extreme example, but now with AI, I think it just automates a lot of stuff
Yes.
that would detract from what particularly a junior person in a business would do. So I'm not certainly kind of head in the sand. I think it will level out, and we will kind of
Yeah.
it, it it's a bit like when the internet came in.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. I
Yeah.
think it will settle, and probably job opportunities will be created from that. But just at this exact moment, it is a concern, because I kind of look at the different sectors where it is stripping away some of those jobs that more junior people would do.
Yeah.
And I just by its very principle, I can't see how it creates jobs at the moment. I'm waiting to speak to someone who's going to give me that. Oh, this is going to create loads of jobs for this. This is.
Yeah, yes, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I think I have the answer either. I think it A will make some of our roles, certainly the more senior roles, more easy, because you can get things done.
Yeah.
People like yourself and I can probably get a lot more done in less time. So actually, our
Mm,
our lives and our jobs would be better and easier. And I do think at the moment it will be a barrier to those junior roles. In fact, we're seeing that
mm,
across the board. There's a couple of the large management consultancies have pretty much taken out the whole graduate layer
mm,
because they're being done. I guess, and this is obviously not necessarily net got jobs, but if AI is used effectively, companies that grow will have more vacancies for people in different roles, if that makes sense. That doesn't
mm.
mean net jobs is increased, but perhaps net
Yeah,
jobs here have increased.
yeah,
So if we master it, then we hopefully will have roles and responsibility, jobs
yeah,
available for people. But
yeah.
um,
It might also revolutionize. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit optimistic, but it might even revolutionize the way we work. Could it lead to the 4-day week? Could it?
I'm absolutely 20,
There's this whole kind of, a lot of our economy is propped up on the hospitality and
yeah,
leisure sector and things like that.
yeah,
And imagine if you had an extra day
absolutely.
to enjoy that. It's interesting. I mean, I don't know if it will come to that, but if I suppose the logic is, if you're working smarter, quicker, therefore, do you need to be a slave to the office 5 days a week? I don't know.
I, I,
That
I
could
I
be
think we will
could
see a
be a benefit,
20-hour week. I really do. I really do think we'll.
right?
I mean, the 40-hour week is only about 100 years old. Before that, it was 12
Yeah,
hours, 6 days a week,
yeah,
primarily. I think it
yeah,
was people like Henry Ford that decided that with automation of
yeah,
automating the production line,
yeah,
um, that they were able to say we can get the same amount done as instead of 72 hours, we can do it in 40.
yeah,
And I think this is the same step change. It's just what
yeah,
does that mean?
yeah.
But I think you're absolutely bang on right now. We're in the middle of that evolutionary step where
Mhm.
it's meant a number of job losses in certain areas, and it's just where
Yeah,
that will come in. Yeah, I mean, as you say, hospitality and service industries may well increase significantly to support people that have more time.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah,
It's a bit about control and concern again, isn't it? It's like
yeah.
I don't know, you don't know, we can't directly affect it, so it's like let's see where it lies.
Mm.
Our founder yesterday was saying, I think it's Elon Musk will be marketing a home domestic robot within 12 months for 20 grand,
Right. Yeah,
which is like starts to get a bit freaky when you think about iRobot and various other films, but we won't go there.
yeah, yeah. Once you go down that road, you kind of, I don't know. It's quite scary, because it's I mean, things like, I mean, if you just take the example of music, I'm a big vinyl collector,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so I'm very much believing that kind of having that tangible
Yeah.
piece of vinyl that you can play and enjoy. And I remember going to kind of record shops and things like that,
Yeah.
and standing in a record shop and getting
Just
the latest music, and now it's just it's just a file. It's just a digital file, and
download. Yeah.
and it's just, no artists make any money out of record sales and things
No.
like that. But I just think the whole experience of how you consume things can, it loses its magic. Maybe it's just because I'm older, but I just feel certain elements like that where you let digital go too far, it can take the shine off something, and
No,
you've got to be careful what you wish for.
yeah, I think so. No, I do, and I think it's just like but I think the key starts with the belief that it will be better in some way,
Mm,
not necessarily
mm,
knowing, and in some way hoping that it will.
yeah.
But who knows? So final question, Chris, what would be the
Yes.
best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that?
Um, Sort of advice I give. I think a lot of things that I mentioned before about the things I've learnt during the along the way. Certainly, some of those things in terms, as I say, the view you've got on money and things like that. You tell yourself something different at that age. I think as well a lot. I think a big thing I would probably wanted to have done is give myself as an 18-year-old a lot more confidence and self-belief, and to value more what worth I bring to the workplace. I think I
Right,
think I
brilliant.
think you're at that age in your 20s where there's certain insecurities and things like that, and I think you can be a little bit I think you can sometimes be low on confidence, and that can be detrimental. And I think I just kind of like go back to that 80-year-old and say, you know what, be confident, have that self-belief a bit
Yeah,
more,
brilliant.
which is difficult to find. It's a difficult thing to
It,
find, but I'd certainly say that would have been a
yeah,
because I think certainly for people's progress, you see people how they can, just from having that self-belief and more self-belief and confidence, can do certain things. I say about how I've only had ownership of within Source for 4 years, and part of me feels, well, why didn't I do that at an earlier point? In my career, that was, and again, I think it maybe boils down to having that self belief, that conviction, confidence in being able to go. It's a big leap, isn't it, to go alone? Particularly when you're in big marketing agencies and you're part of that. And it's hard to jump from that into,
yeah.
right, I'm gonna set up on my own now and grow something from scratch. That certainly was, but yeah, possibly I would have probably liked to have moved into that area a bit earlier than what I did, but making up for it now, I suppose.
It's hindsight, isn't it? It's hindsight's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, and it's like you don't know, but I think it's an interesting exercise just of that thought of what we would do. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, who knows? It's all cool. Chris, it's been fascinating to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing some real insights into business in general, especially your business. And for anyone that is watching would like to get in touch with you or Source Marketing, what would be the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I think obviously our website, we do a lot on social, with doing a lot on TikTok at the moment. So if TikTok's your thing, then you can
Brilliant.
get it on there. I've got Instagram, LinkedIn's obviously more from a business perspective. So certainly follow that, and I'd say as well follow our podcast that we've been doing as well.
Yes, of course.
You can listen back to all the episodes. So they're good fun. Martha and Lewis within our business have been championing that, and
Brilliant.
so yeah, that's a good place as well to start.
Wonderful.